A dancer attracts the attention of the son of a Russian oligarch. This sparks a whirlwind romance, though it ends up not like the Cinderella story she thought it was. At a gentleman's club, Ani works as a dancer who befriends her clients, though when Diamond learns that one of her regulars hired Ani instead, she gets pissed. Still, Ani remains friends with the other dancers, including Lulu. One night, their manager Jimmy summons Ani since he has a client who wants to see someone who speaks Russian. He soon introduces her to Ivan, who's instantly drawn to her. Ivan shares that he's in America on vacation, so to give him a good time, Ani invites him to the VIP room where she performs for him. The two spend the entire night together, with Ani endearing herself to Ivan. After her shift the next morning, Ani leaves her glamorous persona to go home where she lives with her sister. That afternoon, Ani receives a text from Ivan, who invites her to his house. Ani marvels at his luxury home while Ivan excitedly takes her to the bedroom to acquire special services. After the deed, the two get to know each other, and Ani discovers that Ivan is the son of a Russian oligarch. The woman celebrates having a wealthy client, so she later shares this with Lulu. However, Diamond gets angered with jealousy upon overhearing this. The next day, Ani continues entertaining Ivan at his home. He even invites her to his New Year's Eve party. On the night of the party, Ani takes Lulu with her. The party goes wild as the clock hits midnight, and when things start to dial down, Ivan asks for Annie's services to cap the night. Ani ends up spending the night at his home. She wakes up late in the afternoon and hurries to get dressed since she'll be late for work. Not wanting her to leave, Ivan offers her $15,000 to be his exclusive girlfriend for the week, so she doesn't have to work. Tempted, Ani heads to the club and asks Jimmy for a week off. Jimmy points out that he already gave her the holiday off, but Ani argues that he doesn't pay her enough, so she walks off. In the morning, she moves into Ivan's house, spends the night with him again, then meets his friends the next day. She continues to act like his girlfriend, keeping him company throughout the day and pleasing him at night. On another day, they visit the candy shop where Ivan's friends, Tom and Crystal, work. They help themselves to candy before running off to the beach to play around. Ani continues enjoying the life of luxury with Ivan, even joining him and his friends on a spontaneous trip to Las Vegas. There, the group parties at Ivan's private suite, plays at the casino, and enjoys every amenity they can. At night, Ivan also enjoys Ani's presence, with her teaching him how to make their times even more satisfying. This has Ivan even more attached to Ani, but their week is almost over. He also has to return to Russia to work for his father, which he doesn't want to do. He jokingly suggests marrying an American so he doesn't have to return home. However, he starts taking this plan seriously when he remembers that people can elope in Las Vegas. With that, Ivan asks Ani to marry him. The woman laughs, but Ivan points out that they have so much fun together. Realizing that he's serious, Ani agrees to marry him, and they rush to the Little White Chapel to officially become husband and wife. Because of this, Ani soon officially quits being a dancer. Her co-workers congratulate her, though Diamond mocks that her marriage will probably last only 2 weeks. The next day, Ivan buys a wedding ring and a new coat for Ani. The two continue having fun for days, seemingly cementing their relationship as a real couple. Unbeknownst to them, Ivan's parents have learned of his marriage, so they call his godfather Toro, a priest who also lives in America. With this, Toro orders one of his men, Garnik, to find Ivan. That same day, Ani notices Ivan's phone vibrating, but he ignores the calls. Concerned, she asks if he's told his parents about them, and her husband assures her that he has. Meanwhile, Garnik learns that Ivan married a hired woman, making it more important for them to bring him back to Russia. However, he reminds his partner, Igor, that they shouldn't harm Ivan. The two arrive at Ivan's house, but upon seeing them at his door, the man refuses to let them in. To his surprise, Garnik has access to the locks, so Ivan fights to block them from coming in. Seeing this, Ani asks if she should call the cops, but Ivan assures her that he's fine. However, as Garnik tries to push the door open, he mentions that his godfather is upset to learn that he married a hired woman. This surprises Annie, so she asks Ivan what's happening. Her husband is too distracted with the men to notice her, and eventually, he lets the two in, agreeing to show their marriage license to prove that he legally married Ani. Ivan takes Garnik to the office to give him his marriage license while Igor stays with Ani. Garnik then sends photos of the license to Toro, who's in the middle of a baptism. Troubled, he excuses himself from the ceremony. Soon, Ivan pushes Garnik to leave, but the man insists that they have to wait for Toro's instructions. During this, Toro calls Ivan's mother to report the news. He then leaves the church to take matters into his own hands. He calls Garnik, insisting on being put on speaker so Ani can hear him. He proceeds to berate his godson for marrying the woman, which offends Ani. Toro goes on to point out that Ivan has humiliated his family and even made his mother cry. To Ivan's horror, Toro announces that his parents are heading to America to fix this problem. In the meantime, he'll take Ivan and Ani to City Hall to get their marriage annulled. With Ivan suddenly quiet, Ani is left to defend herself and their marriage. Suddenly, the gravity of the situation dawns on Ivan, so he urges Ani to go with him now. Confused, Ani heads up to get her things, but Ivan refuses to wait for her and runs off by himself. Garnik chases after him while the confused Ani tries to catch up. However, Igor blocks her path while Garnik slips, allowing Ivan to get away. Ani fights Igor, scared of what the man will do to her. This leads to Igor tackling her. The woman desperately fights back, so Igor ends up tying her down. Garnik returns to the house and is surprised to find the two this way, so Igor defends that he was ordered to keep her inside, but she kept fighting. Garnik orders him to release her, assuring him that they can handle her if she tries to run again. With this, Igor lets Ani go, but she tries to escape again. He grabs her again, and the woman bites his neck in retaliation. Seeing that she's relentless, Garnik agrees to tie her up, but she kicks him in the face. As Garnik tends to his wound, Ani threatens Igor, asserting that Ivan will avenge her. He points out that her husband just left her, but Ani believes that he went out to get help. Toro finally arrives, horrified at the state of the house. Worse of all, he learns that Ivan got away. He orders Igor to release Ani, surprised that she was able to beat both men. Despite this, Igor argues that if they untie her, she'll run again. For her freedom, Ani offers to get her phone and call Ivan. However, Toro orders Igor to do it instead. As he does, Ani complains that they invaded their home, chased Ivan out, and attacked her. Toro apologizes for this before using Ani's phone to call Ivan. However, the call goes to voicemail, so Toro points out how Ivan isn't husband material since he abandoned her and refused to answer her calls.
Right.
Still, Ani asserts that their marriage is legal. Toro berates her, stressing that she doesn't know Ivan. He recounts that he's been dealing with Ivan's mischief since he was a child, and this situation puts him and his family in danger. Undeterred, Ani still puts her faith in Ivan, even claiming that she might already be carrying his child. Toro threatens that if that was true, they'd take care of that too. He then reveals that the house doesn't belong to Ivan, and the room they've been staying in is his parents'. Ivan's room is the child's room that's full of spaceships, and Toro comments that this is because Ivan is still immature. He asserts that Ivan shamed his family with this marriage, so if she doesn't cooperate, he'll press charges against Ani for scamming Ivan into marrying her. Ani argues that Ivan was the one who proposed to her, showing him the ring he gave her. Seeing this, Toro wrestles the ring off her finger, asserting that it's the property of Ivan's father. Desperate, Ani screams to alert anyone nearby to call the police. Panicked, Toro grabs a scarf and gags her. Later on, Toro calmly talks to the woman. He paints Ivan as the villain who betrayed all of them because he's a spoiled brat. He insists that Ivan only married her for the green card, so he offers to pay her $10,000 for Ivan's green card after they get their annulment. Conflicted and scared, Ani asks to talk to Ivan before making a decision. Toro agrees to this, though he asserts that after they get annulled, she'll never talk to Ivan again. With no choice, Ani agrees. Finally released, Ani washes up in the bathroom to calm down before dressing up to join the men in searching for Ivan. However, she's angered when Igor sits next to her in the car, refusing to be with the man who tied her down. As they drive around the city, Igor awkwardly apologizes to Ani for harming her earlier, though she doesn't accept this. They head to the candy shop first, but Crystal and Tom claim that Ivan hasn't been there, nor has he contacted them. Toro takes over and orders the couple to call Ivan. However, the two are suspicious of the men, so they refuse. After much debate, Toro decides to threaten the couple, so he orders Igor to wreck the place. Scared, Crystal finally calls Ivan, but it goes to voicemail as well. Ani asks them if Ivan could be with another friend, so they direct them to where Alex works. They head to a restaurant where Ani asks Alex about Ivan. He hasn't seen him either, so they use Alex's phone to call the man, which goes to voicemail again. Changing tactics, Toro shows Ivan's photo to the restaurant guests, asking if they've seen him. This doesn't work again, so they head out. On the way to the car, Igor notices that Ani is cold, so he offers the scarf they used on her to keep her warm. However, she's suspicious that he brought the scarf, thinking that he planned to gag her again. As they continue walking, however, she relents and uses the scarf to keep warm. To Toro's horror, he finds that his car is being towed. He offers money to the tow truck driver, but he refuses, so Toro gets into his vehicle and forcefully detaches it from the truck, much to the driver's horror. Toro then orders everyone to get in before driving off. The group continues searching for Ivan in various places with no luck. As the night goes on, Garnick, who's still suffering a headache from Ani's kick, gets sick in the car, forcing Toro to clean it up. However, the smell remains throughout the night. They soon learn that Ivan has been in a club, but left already. Realizing that Ivan has been partying, they check other clubs to find him. Unbeknownst to them, Ivan has just arrived in the club where Ani used to work. Much to Diamond's delight, she announces his arrival to the other dancers as she gets ready to seduce him, and this worries Lulu. The group soon has dinner, with Toro panicking that he can't find his godson. While there, Ani finally receives a message from Lulu, alerting her where her husband is. Quickly, the group rushes to the club just as Diamond has convinced Ivan to go to the VIP room with her. They quickly head to the VIP room, and Ani berates Diamond for performing for her husband. Toro proceeds to scold his godson while Annie begs her husband for an explanation. She recounts how he ran off on her, leaving her to get attacked and have her ring stolen. Still desperate to keep her marriage, Annie tearfully explains that Toro is forcing them to get an annulment, so she asks Ivan to prevent this. However, Ivan is too drunk to take her seriously. Tired of waiting, Toro drags Ivan out of the club while Ani continues begging her husband to do something. During this, Diamond keeps mocking Ani, insisting that she was right about her marriage. Pissed, Ani punches her, starting a fight that only ends when Igor carries Ani out. Finally back in the car, Ani argues to Toro that she needs to talk to Ivan when he's sober, asserting that the man is in no condition to decide on anything. However, Toro insists that they're proceeding with the annulment, so he takes them to City Hall. With the car parked outside, they spend the night there until the judge arrives. Hoping that he's sober enough, Ani tries talking to Ivan again. However, he's still incohesive, so when his father's attorney, Michael, arrives, she tries to point out that Ivan isn't of sound mind to do this process. Despite this, they proceed to the courtroom. Ani then tries to convince the judge that they can't proceed since her husband is still intoxicated. She also argues that their marriage in Las Vegas is legal. Michael is surprised to hear this since they can't annul a marriage that happened in a different state. With this, the judge dismisses them. Panicked, Toro orders the couple to meet with Ivan's parents first and explain to them that they got married without his permission. Ani refuses and begs her husband to leave with her. However, this time, Ivan decides to meet with his parents, and Ani has no choice but to agree, hoping that she can still prove that their love is true. The group heads to the airport where Ivan's parents, Galina and Nikolai, arrive. Ani tries to make a good first impression, but the mother ignores her and just checks on her son. Still, she tries to introduce herself in Russian, expressing her delight in being part of their family. However, Galina asserts that she isn't part of their family and that her son isn't in love with her. When the parents learn that they need to get the annulment in Nevada, they hurry everyone to get on their plane. Ani tries to convince Ivan to refuse this, but he ignores her. Hurt, Ani yells at him. So Ivan finally confirms that they're getting a divorce, even calling her stupid for thinking that he would stop this. As if to make her feel better, Ivan then thanks her for making his trip fun, and this just confirms to Ani that she was nothing but entertainment to the man.
Wow.
She takes a moment to catch her breath while Ivan heads inside the plane.
Wow.
Galina soon orders her to get in, but Annie refuses, asserting that she needs her own lawyer. This way, she can get half of Ivan's money since they never signed a prenup. However, Galina threatens that if she tries to take their money, they can easily destroy her life and bring her family down with her. With no choice, Ani gets on the plane. During the flight, Ivan gets scolded by his parents, who insist that he needs to work for them starting next week. While the family bickers among themselves, Ani seethes in her seat. However, during the argument, Ivan calls Ani as merely a hired woman. Offended, Ani calls him pathetic. Admiring that she stood up for herself, Igor then pours her a glass, which Ani downs. Upon arriving at the Las Vegas office, Galina orders the couple to sign the papers. Before signing, Ani looks to Ivan, still hoping that he'll defend her. However, he looks away, and Ani finalizes their annulment. Recognizing Ani's anger, Igor suggests having Ivan apologize for using her. However, Galina asserts that her son doesn't owe anyone an apology.
Yes, he does.
Ani argues that he should apologize for being a coward, but Galina dismisses her and belittles her status.
This ain't got nothing
In
to do with
retaliation,
you, mama.
Ani points out that her son hates them so much that he married someone like her to piss them off. She then throws her scarf at Galina and dumps her coat on Ivan to return them before walking off. Toro walks her back to the car and orders Igor to escort her to the airport. He allows her to stay at the family's house for the night, but she needs to leave in the morning. Ani spends her flight back sleeping, and Igor covers her with his jacket, pitying the woman. Once at the house, she cries in the shower and shares a smoke with Igor. During this, Igor comments that Ani's real name, Honora, is better than her nickname. However, Ani ridicules that his name sounds like a hunchback weirdo. He then comments that it's good she didn't become part of Ivan's family, but she refuses to accept his compliments, still seeing him as the man who held her down yesterday. She even thinks he would have taken advantage of her if Garnick wasn't there to stop him. Igor defends that he wasn't interested in that. Yet Ani isn't convinced. She then walks to the bedroom to sleep there one last time, but not before throwing a blanket for Igor to use on the couch. In the morning, she admires the bedroom view for the last time before packing her things. Igor then drives her to the bank to confirm that Toro has paid before taking her home. Before she returns to her old life, Igor returns her wedding ring, having stolen it from Toro. This makes Ani consider that Igor is truly on her side after all. However, she refuses to be in his debt, so she gives her services to him. During the deed, Igor stops her to kiss her, only for her to reject him and start punching him in tears. The man then holds her in his arms as Ani cries over the reality that Igor cared more about her than Ivan ever did. And now, she lost the fairy tale life she thought she had.
Dang. Subscribe to watch more videos like this.
Dang.
Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel.
Yo, dang. When your husband was sitting there the whole time. Happens to the best of them.